Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Ty, Metalhead Weatherman. Been an active few days, and it's not slowing down. Still plenty more to talk about in regards to severe weather. I've almost kind of forgotten what's been going on around the rest of the country. I will be going over that tomorrow with a weekend forecast. But before I get into it here, if you guys like what I'm doing, let me know in the comments. Drop a like, subscribe, and share, as this helps get the algorithm up and gets this info out to more people that will need it. But without further ado, let's get into it. So we had a massive severe weather outbreak yesterday, multiple tornadoes, some of which looked to be pretty violent based off some of the radar velocities that I saw. But so far, I have gotten no reports of fatalities or serious injuries, which is a great thing. People were heeding the warnings, so big shout out to everybody in the weather community, whether it's a channel small as mine or one of the top channels, heck, or just any meteorologist at a local station or wherever. Big up to you guys. So, of course, we have plenty more going on. Threat's not over by a long shot. We have an enhanced risk of severe weather, ongoing tornado watch, and severe thunderstorm watch, and severe thunderstorm warnings at the moment. We have had 2 tornado reports today in Texas, in eastern Texas, past Tyler. And we've had a multitude of wind and hail reports as well. Hail being the more dominant report today with 36, wind being at 12, and of course 2 tornado reports were already at 50. This storm system is expected to continue to move on to the east, so there may be more to come. In fact, from the looks of it, they may have the Storm Prediction Center is having another mesoscale discussion to possibly issue another tornado watch near New Orleans. I'm trying to figure out how old that is because the way they do their times on here is kind of confusing. But this might be older. This might be more recent. No, this is pretty old at this point, actually. So let's get into the risk for tonight. Take a look at the radar, and then we'll move on to tomorrow's threat, which has also been up to an enhanced risk. And this is important for a lot of people that live in my area, near Atlanta and areas of Columbus in particular. So we'll have to watch this real close. Tornado threat is diminishing. I think we're starting to really trend towards more of a straight line damaging wind threat. I want to call this a quasi-linear, but I think this is more of an MCS, maybe a bow echo type deal, more so than it is quasi-linear. But there is still a decent tornado threat. Nothing major is expected, but especially towards the western half of this outlook area, towards the enhanced and slight risk, I will be on the lookout for maybe a spin up or two. But the wind threat definitely becomes the more dominant hazard in this situation. We have a 30% risk where that slight risk is. Include Shreveport and Lufkin. I think Lufkin, you're actually done for the night, so you guys should be good. But areas like Greenville, Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, and Nashville, Bowling Green, Kentucky, and even areas like Jackson and Alexandria, New Orleans too. You guys might need to be on the lookout because these storms are heading towards you next. And it still seems like there's still some daytime heating left in the day. So these could strengthen. It's hard. I wouldn't rule it out. So just stay weather aware down in those areas. We do have a notable hail threat. It's a slight risk. It's a 15%er for all the same areas that I've mentioned, and then in the brown we have a 5% risk. Like I said, areas like Waco and Lufkin, for the most part, I think your threat's over. San Antonio, I think your threat's over. Houston, anywhere east of Shreveport, I think, needs to be watched closely for ongoing severe storms. So let's go into tomorrow, and we will go over what's now been upgraded to an enhanced risk. It's a very small enhanced risk area, and this kind of leans me towards thinking that there's going to be a tornado threat here. A lot of times this year, when I've seen small area like that around areas closer to the Gulf of Mexico. It seems like there's always been an increased amount of wind shear or moisture, and storms tend to be a little stronger here. Wind shear definitely looks like the question this time. We'll check the tornado threat last. Hail threat's pretty widespread. Given the temperature and the lapse rates, and as well as the dew points, this doesn't surprise me. It's been very moist here all week. It even gets foggy in the mornings. Even with our lows being in the 60s overnight, it still gets pretty foggy here, which is kind of crazy. Of course, I live near the river. Might I digress, though? We have a 15% that's very widespread, and I think this could even be upgraded to a 30% by tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. But anyone in the yellow, 15%, we have Richmond, Virginia Beach, and Roanoke. We also have Charleston, West Virginia involved in this. Then we have eastern half of Kentucky involved in it too. Eastern half of Tennessee. Pretty much anywhere east of Nashville, you have to be on the lookout. Almost the entire state of North Carolina. This includes Charlotte, Raleigh. And then we have South Carolina. We have Columbia and Chattanooga in the 15%. My hometown, Atlanta. Birmingham in there as well. Columbus. You're in there. Dothan, Mobile, and Tallahassee, Florida as well. If you're in the brown, you have a 5% chance, a marginal risk. This pushes up almost as far as D.C. Then we have people in Springfield and Columbus. You guys need to be watchful. Cincinnati, you're in play as well. And the central part of Kentucky, Mayfield, Louisville, Bowling Green, you're in play for this. I think this will be an earlier threat, though. Nashville, you might get another storm early on Friday, but I think by that point the threat's going to be reduced tremendously. And then over towards New Orleans, you might have an early morning severe storm possible that may drop some hail. But beyond that, and then we also have Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, and Wilmington in play. Then we get into the wind threat. This is when business starts to pick up here. So all the same areas I mentioned in the hail threat, percentage with the wind threat's the same until we get into this this enhanced risk area. We got a 30% chance of 60 knot or higher, or 50 knot or higher winds, or 60 mile per hour winds or greater. And Dothan, you're just outside of this line. I might as well almost call you in it. Areas just to the north, you definitely are in it. Columbus, you're in it. Atlanta, you're just on the line. You're just outside the line. So we'll be watching you very closely. This could very well expand or shrink. It's hard to say. But this little swath right here, we have to be really careful of. We got Macon and Warner Robins in there as well. And Auburn, you're in this as well as Montgomery. So then we go to the tornado threat, and the look is relatively similar, slightly different though on the 5% threat. So basically everyone that I mentioned before, you're already in 2%. We get to the 5% threat in areas like Raleigh and Virginia Beach. Richmond, you're just barely inside of it. And then if you're to the east of Roanoke, you need to be watchful as well. Then we have a big 5% area that stretches all the way up into eastern Kentucky, or east central Kentucky, I should say. Not a lot of major cities in there, but if you're to the east of Louisville, and you're going to have to be pretty watchful, east of Bowling Green as well. To the east of Nashville, you have the 2%. And then we get towards eastern Tennessee, you get to that 5% area. Atlanta, you're in that 5% area. If you're to the east of Birmingham, you're in that 5% area. Mobile, you're in the 5%, and Dothan, you are as well. We get to that 10% area, that's when we have Macon, Montgomery, Warner Robins, Columbus, and Auburn in play again. So areas to the south of Atlanta, and to the south in... Might be a new update? No. And areas to the south and east of Birmingham, you guys need to be extremely watchful. because this is an increased tornado threat. So far, no hatched risk area, but this could easily change. I don't think conditions are quite favorable for significant tornadoes, but we can never rule it out. But let's actually get into the models here, and we're going to take a look at what the radar could look like tonight for the areas that are under the gun right now. So we're mainly going to be expecting this to move further and further off to the east. And then this will start to dissipate in the early morning hours and then reform into the early afternoon, I think. So we got this line of storms that goes through this little southern segment is the area I'm going to be watching the most for tornadic activity. And then we'll watch these storms really start to tamper off into the overnight. And then in the morning hours, it's going to be kind of questionable what happens next. We're going to take a look at the NAM for the hours that we can't look at. Then we also have this big shield of rain that's going to be coming into areas like Virginia and West Virginia. North Carolina, I think you're going to stay just outside of that. You might get some cloud cover, but I think another big factor with tomorrow's threat will be just how much residual cloud cover will we have ahead of the storms and how much sunlight will we get. If we don't get much, then that might be a saving grace. If not, it could become very volatile. I think most likely we'll have the sun pop out in that enhanced risk area. That's probably what the Storm Prediction Center is thinking will happen. So let's take a quick look at what that low-level jet will look like over in this area into the early afternoon here when those storms are going to be popping up. And it seems we do have a little bit of a spiked area. Actually, two. We have one that's behind it in Mississippi and I can't speak right now. Mississippi and Louisiana. Oops. And then we have a secondary spot beginning to develop in Mississippi and into Alabama. So this is going to be a very key factor in our storm activity. We have a really nasty spot here in Mississippi, but I think the storms will be a little bit further ahead of that. But that just also shows how much wind energy is associated with this upper level low that's rolling through the area. So I'm expecting this still to be a mostly linear event, but you see all this swirl right here. I think right here on the southern end of that line is where we're going to be interested in tornadic activity. Oh, wow. So I clicked that sounding right there, and look at this curved hordeograph, and look at the angle. We have a critical angle of 48 degrees. Very important. It's a pretty tight gradient here. Then we have very sufficient temperature, CAPE, and dew point readings. We're sitting at almost 3,000. We're sitting at 2,900 right now on that. Temperatures in the 70s. Dew points in the mid-70s, nearing the mid-70s. That's crazy. Also have significant hail analog matching the sounding analogs. This has PDS tornado threat. So this is why our enhanced risk is issued, because this is what these guys at the Storm Prediction Center were seeing. So, like I said, anywhere south and west of Atlanta, as of right now, you guys need to be careful. I do think that this could even trend a little bit further north, because when we look at this low-level jet, this does pick up a little bit and it goes a little further north. The wind shear will be a key factor on whether or not you get tornado over wind if these storms were to form and hold together around this area. That just goes to show the threat is there. Then as this moves a little further off to the east, this low-level jet starts to dismantle a little bit. Then once we get towards North Carolina in the evening hours, I want to kind of keep a close eye on this little panhandle-like area as well. I do think that there is a potential for a tornado. And there, oh, look at that. There you go. Impressive dew points, impressive lapse rates. Even have supercell matches on here. Quite a few of them. Actually says 17. Then we have significant hail matches, about 54 of those. A little bit of an odd choreograph curve, but there is one nonetheless. Critical angles are about 46. So this is, and we have impressive dew points as well as temperatures, even into the evening hours. So Friday could be a pretty nasty day in its own right. So we go into the late evening and into the overnight hours. This low level jet starts to die off, thankfully. And that will be the end of this. That should be about the end of this storm system. You might see a little bit more severe weather on Saturday in the northeast, maybe towards Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. We'll go over that in tomorrow's. We'll briefly touch on that in tomorrow's video. But let's take a look at the temperatures real quick. So we'll drop the loop feedback just a little bit, just to help help me keep up. Maybe you guys too. But you can even see, and look at the temperatures. Look at how the temperatures are advecting and pushing up to the north here. You can clearly see just how warm it'll be ahead of these storms. And that's one of the big concerns that I was going to have, was the fact that these temperatures were going to really be nice and juicy ahead of this storm here. So we're sitting in the 70s around Atlanta. We're sitting into the mid to upper 70s probably in parts of southern Georgia and into Alabama, maybe even a few 80s. And then in North and South Carolina, heading towards Virginia, that's where I'm also very concerned. We have almost this little streak-like look to it, maybe even some 80s and maybe even a 90 in isolated areas. So this is very dangerous here. So these temperatures linger into the overnight. So this threat looks like it could even go nocturnal, even towards the east coast here, especially the coast of North and South Carolina. I think the threat by that point will be something a little bit more linear in nature, more damaging straight line winds, but still can't rule out a tornado because the low level jet is has increased in that area a little bit. We look into tomorrow. We'll take a look into Saturday. Might not get severe weather, and you might get some cold core severe weather in Pennsylvania, maybe to the far south. I don't know. It's hard to say right now. Take a quick look at the dew points. We'll look at all the parameters actually. We'll just look at them all. There's no reason not to at this point. It's going to be a little bit longer of a video, so hopefully you guys bear with me here, but I don't really even need to move this forward just so you guys understand how moist, how muggy it is out here. I mean, look at this. This is insane. Dew points in the 70s in the far southern parts of Georgia and Alabama. This is going to be a hotbed for severe weather tomorrow. Wouldn't even surprise me if they may even uptick this to moderate risk even. I hate to say that, but it wouldn't quite be unreasonable. And even into Kentucky, we have dew points into the mid 60s. That's crazy. And then ahead of this storm, these dew points only continue to ramp up. And then these dew points just continue to move east ahead of these storms, and North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, you guys got to be on the lookout for some late evening storms, because with the way the environment looks, I don't see these going anywhere. So we're going to take a quick look at the Cape values real quick. Then we'll take a look at what the radar will look like for tomorrow and into Saturday. So here's what our Capes look like right now. Oh, nope, went a little too far. Looks like there could be a marginal risk around Texas-Mexico border once again. But right around here, we're already in that 1,000 joules range. Some areas even a little bit higher than that. We'll move this further and further forward. I really expect this spike to pop up right about here. This is where I'm worried about some really nasty weather. This is looking like a this is looking more like a quasi-linear type event for tomorrow. Towards southern Georgia, we have Cape values pushing 2,000 to 2,500, more than sufficient enough. Then towards northern Georgia and Atlanta, we're still pushing that 1,500 to 2,000 mark. So seems like we're going to have a lot of active weather. And then look over here towards North Carolina. We have a spot here where we might even be pushing about 3,000. So it's a very extensive threat. And then, wow, just look at that right there. If storms pop up in this area, which I'm expecting them to, these could also pull severe. I didn't really look to see if there was going to be a marginal risk there, but I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't be surprised to see that by tomorrow morning's outlook. So move this further along. And then Saturday, if I remember correctly, we had a marginal risk pop up here with ridiculous Cape values heading up north for Sunday, which is insane. Plenty more active weather to talk about, especially into the weekend. Let's finally take a look at the radar, what the radar could look like within the next 24 hours. So go about 17 hours out, starting out. Looks like we still have that line of storms kicking into the early morning hours. Lost a little bit of its luster, but still plenty of energy. There's still a good bit of energy with it. You can still see some red. Still a tornado threat near Mississippi in the early morning hours, pushing into Alabama. It kind of has an embedded supercell look to it as well, so that's going to have to be watched real close. We move this along, and these storms increase in coverage. And then even though I'm not real close in, I can even see the supercellular look towards the middle part of where this line is. Like I said, we're right on that southeastern quadrant, and this warm front has pushed so far north, which is why we're getting severe weather so far up, even into the Ohio Valley, which is kind of crazy. You don't expect this stuff. You kind of start to expect this stuff, but that's more towards late May, not May 5th or May 6th or whatever. Then there's a little bit of a supercellular look towards Virginia and North Carolina, right around where I said that low-level jet was starting to spike up around this time. There's our tornado threat again. Kind of has that kidney bean look to it. So that'll have to be watched real close. There could potentially be a couple of rounds of this too for North Carolina, maybe even for Georgia as well, but I think the first round will definitely be the stronger of the two rounds. It's a very impressive storm system that's rolling through here. Very potent one. But by Saturday, things are calming down. Temperatures are pretty cool off in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, so actually I jumped the gun a little bit. Warm front's won't reach those guys, so I think the threat will mainly be just some rain and some high wind, possibly. So move this along, and it's really all I got for you guys. Might be some storms in South Dakota tomorrow, or Saturday, I mean. Marginal risk for severe weather then. But this is all I got for you guys. I will have a weekend forecast for everyone tomorrow. But until then, this is Tyler Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Take care.